And please tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I would love to interact with you legends. Now to the story. I met him during a really weird phase in my life, at limbo after ending something that wasn't bad enough to break me but left me wanting someone who actually cared. His name was Callum, and he showed up on my Tinder one boring Wednesday night. He wasn't the type I usually went for, but there was something calm about him. His photos were kind of basic, a mirror selfie, one hiking picture, one with a dog. He had that soft-spoken vibe that makes you think he wouldn't hurt a fly. Our first few weeks were easy. He wasn't over the top, wasn't trying too hard, and for once I felt like I didn't have to act like someone else. He listened to the stuff I liked, remembered small things I said, and always made me feel seen. The thing that stood out most about him was how careful he was with words, like he thought about everything before saying it. It almost felt rehearsed, but I brushed it off. After a couple months, I was spending half my time at his apartment. It was in his modern block near the river, kind of sterile but neat. Everything matched. Beige walls, soft lighting, furniture in perfect symmetry. There was a faint vanilla smell that never went away, even when he cooked. It wasn't messy, not even a little. I remember once leaving my charger on the table, and the next day it was coiled neatly in a drawer. He said he liked things just right. The weird stuff started small. He asked random questions that didn't really fit into conversations, like if I'd ever considered dyeing my hair darker, or if I preferred gold jewelry to silver. Then he started making small suggestions. What perfume I should try, what jacket would really suit me, even what nail shape he thought looked best. I didn't think much of it at first. People have preferences, right? But it didn't stop there. Around the 3-month mark, he got a new tattoo, a small bird on his wrist. He said he'd been planning it for ages, but a few days later, while scrolling through his phone to show me a meme, I saw the same exact bird tattoo on a woman's arm in one of his old photos. Her name was blurred out, but she had dark brown hair, just like the shade he'd been suggesting I try. It started getting uncomfortable after that. Every new thing he did felt like it was done for someone else. He quit his job at the cafe and said he'd always wanted to work in marketing. I thought it was random because he'd never mentioned it before, but he suddenly acted like it was his lifelong dream. He even started wearing button-ups and carrying a briefcase. I'd tease him about it, and he'd just laugh it off. Then one night I stayed over while he was out late. He left his laptop open, and I don't even know why I looked, but I did. There was a folder on his desktop called Old Stuff. Inside were photos, notes, and screenshots. The woman from the tattoo photo was in almost every one of them. There were pictures of her apartment. Same lamp, same beige couch, same candle brand. There were screenshots of messages where she talked about her favorite places, her favorite movies, her perfume, her favorite meal. It all clicked at once. Every single thing in his life. Every coincidence, every suggestion he'd made to me. He wasn't building something new. He was rebuilding her. I sat there frozen for a while. There were notes he'd written too. Lists like hair color, chestnut brown, her laugh, prefers white bedding, order same pendant, learn cooking, Thai curry. It was like a checklist for being someone's shadow. I wanted to leave, but part of me wanted to understand what I was looking at. I found an old photo of the two of them in a reflection of a mirror. He looked younger, happier, but it was the look on his face that hit me. The same way he looked at me sometimes when I was half asleep, like he was studying my face. When he came home that night, I couldn't even look at him the same. He acted like everything was normal, asked about my day, started cooking dinner like nothing happened. I felt sick watching him. He moved around the kitchen like he'd done it a million times before, every gesture so practiced. It was like he rehearsed being this person. I didn't say anything for a couple days. I wanted to be sure before I walked away. So I started asking small things, about the tattoo, about why he suddenly wanted to work in marketing, even why he liked that specific candle scent. He gave vague answers, the kind that sound true until you really listen. A week later, I went back to his place and decided to look deeper. In one of his drawers, behind a stack of folded shirts, I found a box. Inside were random things. A bracelet, a scarf, some old photos, and a phone. The phone still worked. It had that same woman's selfies on it, messages between them that hadn't been deleted. He must have kept it after she left him. In one of the messages, she wrote about how creeped out she felt that he copied her routines. She said he was starting to feel like a mirror instead of a boyfriend. My stomach dropped reading that because I realized I'd been living the same pattern. Same suggestions, same changes, same everything. She'd left, and I'd been her replacement. I didn't tell him I found the box. I left that night pretending everything was fine. Told him how to stay in a friend's for a bit. He just smiled and sent a text when I got back. That smile still makes me feel sick when I think about it. When I blocked him, he didn't message from his account. He made a new one. Same pictures, slightly edited bio, new name. But I could tell it was him. The same phrasing, same tone, even the same emojis. The creepiest part. The new bio mentioned a hobby I'd introduced him to, something he never cared about before. Now he was using me as a reference point for his next virgin. It's been months since I last saw him. I've moved cities, changed my number, deleted all my dating apps. But sometimes when I scroll through social media and see couples who look too coordinated, matching outfits, matching tattoos, perfectly staged apartments, I wonder if one of them started out like me. Someone trying to build a new life, not realizing they were just stepping into someone else's leftover shape. I met her on a random Sunday night when I couldn't sleep. I'd been scrolling through Tinder out of boredom, just swiping right on anyone who didn't have a fish picture or an adventure buddy caption. Her name was Lana. She looked like she had stepped out of some perfect lifestyle ad. Soft smile, messy hair that still somehow looked good, and that kind of confident vibe that made you want to know her. Her profile wasn't flashy. A few normal photos, a simple bio about liking photography and late night drives. It didn't scream fake or desperate. It felt real in that chill, effortless way that's hard to find online. She matched with me in minutes, and we started talking like we'd known each other forever. She was easy to talk to, not too serious but not shallow either. She laughed at my dumb jokes, remembered what I said, and asked things no one usually asked. At first, I thought I'd gotten lucky. She didn't ask for anything weird, never pushed too hard, just seemed genuinely into me. We texted all the time, morning messages, random photos from her day, late night talks. She told me she lived a couple towns away and worked freelance doing digital marketing. It made sense because she was always online, posting stories about working from cafes or editing photos. We didn't meet for the first 2 months. Every time I asked, something came up. Work trip, family stuff, food poisoning. It was always believable, never over the top. She'd make up for it with long calls and random gifts. Once she sent me a hoodie with my name embroidered on it that she had made as a surprise. That kind of attention made me overlook a lot of the weirdness. By month 3, I was hooked. I knew her favorite food, the coffee she drank, even the sound of her laugh. She started calling me her safe place. It sounds corny now, but back then it felt good. I'd been through a bad breakup before her, so the emotional comfort hit hard. I didn't realize that was the whole point. The first red flag came when she said her Instagram got hacked. She made a new one and added me again, but something about the timing felt off. The old account disappeared completely, not even searchable. When I asked how it happened, she brushed it off like it wasn't a big deal. She said she used the same password for everything and that she'd just start over. Around that time, she started showing more interest in what I did for work. I told her I did its support, and she said she was trying to learn about cybersecurity. She'd ask random things like what VPN I used, how I backed up my data, or what apps I trusted for online banking. It didn't strike me as strange because I figured she was just curious. She'd also send me links, playlists, funny videos, websites where she said she bought gifts from. They all looked normal. I clicked on them without thinking twice. Then came the part where she wanted to share more of our lives. She asked for my Spotify login so she could add songs, then my Netflix one to watch something together. A few weeks later, she wanted to set up a joint travel plan on an app, which meant giving her my name, date of birth, and postcode. I hesitated a bit, but she said she needed it to book surprise tickets. She even sent a fake confirmation email that looked real. I didn't know it yet, but every bit of info I gave her was being pieced together like a puzzle. We finally met in person after almost 5 months. She was exactly like her photos. Perfect. The way she talked moved. Even how she smiled felt so genuine. We spent the whole weekend together, and everything felt normal. She left her charger, her perfume, little signs she'd been there, almost like she wanted to blend into my space. That night, she used my laptop to order food since her phone was dying. I didn't even question it. She typed fast, didn't look suspicious, just casually doing her thing. She even left her browser open when she went to the bathroom. But when I looked, I didn't see any food website. It was my online banking page. I thought maybe it autofilled because I'd used it earlier, so I ignored it. The next morning, she said she had to go early for a last-minute meeting. I kissed her goodbye, went back to bed, and thought I'd just see her later that night, except she never texted again. By the afternoon, I started noticing things. My phone logged out of Gmail. My Instagram password didn't work. My bank app kept saying invalid credentials. When I tried resetting them, none of the recovery emails were mine anymore. Panic hit when I checked my PayPal and saw hundreds of pounds missing, all transferred to random accounts. She'd taken everything. Not just money, everything. My photos, messages, contacts, even my identity. She'd used my details to apply for credit cards, set up new email addresses, and even register a fake company in my name. I reported it all, but it didn't matter. She was gone. Every profile she'd used vanished. The Lana I knew never existed. Her pictures came from a real person's Instagram in another country. Her job, fake. The company she said she worked for had no record of her. The scariest part wasn't losing money. It was realizing how deeply she planned it. Every move, every joke, every fake moment was calculated. She learned everything about me, how I thought, what I trust, how I'd react. She didn't rush it. She made me feel safe for months, and then took everything in one clean hit. It took almost a year to fix the damage. I had to prove who I was to banks, government sites, even my own workplace. Friends thought I was exaggerating until they saw how deep it went. She even used my photos to make fake dating profiles while I was still trying to recover. Sometimes I still think about how she looked that night, sitting at my desk, typing with this calm expression. No guilt, no hesitation, like she'd done it 100 times before. I don't go on dating apps anymore. Not because I'm scared of getting hurt, but because I can't look at a single profile without wondering if they're real or if they're just collecting the next version of me. When I matched with him, it felt like I'd won some kind of dating lottery. His name was Ethan. Clean-cut, confident but not cocky, and most importantly, verified. A little blue checkmark next to his name gave me this weird sense of comfort. It made him feel real in a space full of people pretending to be someone else. I'd been catfished once before, so I didn't take chances anymore. Seeing that verification symbol was like a seal of safety. Our chats were easy. He wasn't pushy, didn't use pickup lines, and didn't make me feel awkward like most guys on there. He seemed smart, like actually smart, and he asked thoughtful questions. He said he worked in tech, doing quality control for a social media company. That sounded vague, but believable. We texted for a couple of weeks before meeting up. He always knew the right things to say to keep me comfortable. He never overshared, but he remembered everything I said. He'd bring up tiny details I mentioned days earlier, like the exact type of smoothie I ordered or the name of my old cat. It was flattering at first, like he actually paid attention, but after a while it started to feel too specific, like he had notes somewhere. Our first date was perfect. We met at a busy bar near my flat, neutral ground. He was exactly like his pictures. Calm voice, kind eyes, and neatly dressed. He seemed grounded. He even waited outside the bar until I walked in before approaching me, saying he didn't want to make me uncomfortable. That kind of consideration isn't normal on dating apps, so I remember thinking maybe I'd finally met someone decent. After a few more dates, I started noticing little coincidences. He mentioned things that I couldn't remember ever telling him. Once, he casually said my sister's name in a story. I had never mentioned her before. When I asked how he knew, he laughed and said I must have told him weeks ago. I doubted myself because maybe I had. He'd text me at the exact moments I was leaving work or just as I got home. He'd say things like, "Bet you're crashing on the couch right now," and he'd be right. He even sent me links to restaurants near my house, saying we should try them sometime. I figured he just remembered where I said I lived, but he named specific places, ones I'd walked by that day. It didn't click until one night when I was showing my friend his profile. She was scrolling through his photos, and I noticed something strange. The verified checkmark on his Bumble wasn't in the usual spot. Hers looked slightly different. His was brighter, a little more polished. She said maybe he was a beta tester or something. That stuck in my head, though. A few days later, I asked him how he got verified. He said he knew people at the company. He brushed it off fast, changed the topic, and complimented my earrings. But something about his tone made me feel weird. I started looking him up online. He didn't have Facebook, his Instagram was private, and his LinkedIn barely had anything. Just said, content moderation, Bumble Incorporated. That's when it hit me. He worked for Bumble. He hadn't just been a random verified user. He was literally part of the team that handled reports, data, and user activity. He had access to all of it. I tried to convince myself I was overthinking, but the signs were too obvious. He knew details no one should know. Like when I deleted my old photos and changed my bio, he texted me that night saying he liked the new version. I thought he was guessing, but now it made sense. He could see everything. Things got worse once we stopped talking for a few days. I'd posted a story on Instagram, just a random one of me watching a movie, and an hour later he messaged saying I had good taste in horror. My Instagram was private. I asked how he saw it, and he said it was a lucky guess. It wasn't. I decided to block him on everything. I deleted Bumble, Instagram, even my email he had. I felt paranoid, like my phone was listening. 2 nights later, I got an email from Bumble support, or what looked like Bumble support. It said my account had been flagged for suspicious activity and that they were verifying ownership. It asked me to confirm my number and photo ID. The email looked legit with a company logo and layout. I was about to reply when I noticed the sender's address wasn't exactly right. It had 1 letter off. That's when I knew it was him. I didn't respond. I reported the email to Bumble, and a week later, they confirmed it hadn't come from them. They even said the sender matched an internal employee account that had been recently suspended for misuse of user data. I never got the full story, but I knew it was him. The next few weeks were awful. I kept getting strange login alerts from old accounts I hadn't used in years. Spotify, PayPal, even my email. Someone was trying to get into everything linked to my name. Every password I'd ever reused had to be changed. Then came the creepiest part. I got a message from an unknown number that said, "You shouldn't have reported me." No name, no context, just that. I blocked it immediately, but I couldn't stop thinking about how he might still be watching me, through old chats, deleted photos, or worse, my location. It turns out Bumble keeps a lot of user data, even after you delete things, old conversations, uploaded images, reports. And employees on the moderation team can technically access them for safety checks. Except he'd used that access for himself. He'd been reading everything from the start, maybe even before we matched. He knew what kind of people I liked, what I'd posted, what I deleted, and where I went. He built himself into the kind of guy he knew I'd trust. After I found all that out, I stopped using dating apps completely. I even changed my number and got a new phone. But the damage was already done. Sometimes I still think about how easy it was for him to get into my life, all because I thought a blue checkmark meant safety. The messed up part is, I still see his face sometimes when I scroll through random profiles. It's never exactly him, but it's close. Same smile, same tone in the bio, same vibe. And every time I can't help wondering if he's still out there somewhere, sitting behind the screen, reading someone else's deleted messages, pretending to be someone new. The weirdest part is that it didn't even start bad. The date was just awkward, not terrifying, not dangerous, just uncomfortable in that this person isn't what I expected kind of way. His name was Milo. We met on Grindr one night when I was half watching Netflix and half bored out of my mind. He looked decent in his pictures. Clean haircut. Gym type, not too flashy. His messages were short and polite, which I liked. We talked for about a week before meeting up. He picked a small cafe in town. I remember it because the lighting was way too bright for a date. He looked the same, maybe a little older, but still fine. The issue wasn't how he looked. It was how he watched. He barely blinked. Every time I looked away and back again, his eyes were already on me like he was studying me, trying to memorize my reactions. The conversation dragged. He asked super specific questions. Where I worked, what time I usually got off, which gym I went to. I answered vaguely and tried to keep it casual, but he kept circling back to personal stuff. About 30 minutes in, I knew I wanted to go. He didn't take it well when I said I had to leave. He didn't argue, but he stayed for a long time, like he was waiting for me to change my mind. When I stood up, he smiled in this slow, stiff way that didn't reach his eyes. I said maybe we text, but I didn't mean it. That night, I deleted the chat. The next morning, I opened Grindr like usual, just scrolling while brushing my teeth. The first profile that popped up was his. Milo, 37, 43 meters away. I rolled my eyes, figured he lived nearby, and ignored it. I went out later that day, met some friends across the city, and when I checked again out of habit, there he was, still 43 meters away. I laughed at first because it didn't make sense. Maybe the app glitched. But when I got home that night, he was still meters away. I turned my phone off. A few days later, I drove to my mom's house, 2 hours from where I live. I opened the app in her driveway just to see, and there he was again. Milo, 37, 39 meters away. My stomach dropped. I stared at it so long the screen dimmed. The first thought that hit me was that maybe he was messing with GPS spoofing or something. Tech people could do that. But it still freaked me out that he'd bother. I didn't contact him. I didn't even click his profile. I just deleted the app and tried to forget about it. A week later, I reinstalled Grindr. Not because I missed him. I just got bored again. I made a new profile with a different photo, different name, everything. Within minutes, Milo, 37, 41 meters away. That's when I realized it wasn't a glitch. He knew somehow. I checked the distance again and again, watching it change slightly. 39, 40, 41, like he was moving around but never leaving. The thought of him standing somewhere close by made me feel sick. I locked all my doors, turned off Bluetooth, deleted the app again, and threw my phone across the bed. That night, I got an email. No name, no message, just a screenshot. It was my own Grindr profile, the new one, the one that wasn't linked to my number or email. I hadn't even used a recognizable photo. The sender's address was random but a string of letters and numbers. The next day, I changed everything. My number, my accounts, even my SIM card. I thought maybe I'd finally lose him. 3 weeks passed quietly. I almost convinced myself I'd imagined how creepy it really was. I went to visit a friend in Manchester, stayed at his flat for the weekend. Saturday night, we were drinking, and my friend pulled up Grindr on his phone just for laughs. I leaned over to look. Milo, 37, 43 meters away. My friend thought I was joking when I froze. He scrolled down, showing me other profiles nearby, but my brain locked on that one name. I hadn't told anyone about him, hadn't even said his name out loud in weeks. That's when I realized it didn't matter what device I used. He wasn't following my phone. He was following me. That night, I barely slept. I kept looking out the window, expecting to see someone standing under a streetlight. I deleted every social app, logged out of everything, even factory reset my phone. I told myself he couldn't possibly still be near. When I flew home 2 days later, I opened Grindr one last time just to check, using a random burner account I'd made months before. The app loaded, and within seconds, Milo, 37, 40 meters away. I nearly dropped the phone. The weirdest part was, the photo was different. Same name, same age, same blank bio, but the profile picture wasn't the one he'd used before. It was me. A photo from my Instagram that I deleted months ago. Me smiling in front of a train station. It didn't even feel real at that point. I just stared at it, heart pounding, trying to figure out how he'd done it. How he'd gotten that photo. Why he changed his profile to mine. I reported it, blocked it, deleted the app permanently. A few days later, a message popped up on WhatsApp from an unknown number. It said, "You move around a lot." That was all. No name, no photo, nothing. After that, I stopped trying to fix it. I bought a new phone, new number, even stopped using my real name online. I kept Grindr off for good, but every once in a while, when someone around me opens it, at a cafe, on a train, in a hotel lobby, I hear the faint ping sound it makes, and I can't help glancing over, expecting to see that same profile sitting near the top of their list. Some part of me knows that if I ever downloaded it again, he'd still be there, Milo, 37, 43 meters away, waiting, no matter where I go. The first time it happened, I didn't think much of it. Just a coincidence. I matched with this guy named Adam, and he asked if I wanted to grab a coffee at this cute cafe downtown called the Wild Bean. I said sure. It was a nice place, quiet, cozy, lots of plants. He picked the corner table by the window, ordered an iced latte and a slice of lemon drizzle cake. He seemed normal. Conversation was okay. Nothing weird. The date ended. We went our separate ways, and that was that. The second time, it was weird. Different guy, same app, same type of chat. His name was Josh. He asked me out, and without me suggesting anything, he said, "You ever been to the Wild Bean? They do the best lemon drizzle cake." I laughed because I had been there recently. I didn't think too hard about it, though. Maybe it was a popular spot. But when we got there, he picked the exact same table, the corner by the window, and ordered the exact same thing as Adam. Same drink, same cake, even sat in the same seat. It was like deja vu. I brushed it off again, but when I matched with the next guy, a guy named Daniel, and he also suggested the Wild Bean, that's when I started to feel off. It was too specific. There were dozens of cafes nearby, but they all wanted that one. When I showed up to meet Daniel, the staff actually smiled at me and said, "The usual table." That freaked me out. I asked them what they meant, and the barista kind of laughed it off, saying something like, "Oh, you and your dates always pick the same corner." I didn't know what to say. I didn't even know how to explain it to her. Daniel sat down and ordered the same exact thing as the others. Lemon drizzle cake, iced latte, corner seat. Word for word, action for action. Halfway through the date, I noticed something that made my stomach twist. He kept glancing down at his phone like he was checking something. Not messages, more like instructions. He'd read something, then look up, smile, and ask me a specific question, like, "What's your go-to-comfort show?" I could see tiny bullet points reflected in his glasses once when he tilted his head. When I asked what he was reading, he said he was just checking a work notification, but I didn't buy it. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I scrolled back through all three guys' chats, and they all used eerily similar phrasing. Things like, "You seem down to earth," or "I love people who order lemon desserts." Even the way they complimented me, "You have this calm energy." It was the same wording every time. Something wasn't right. I tried to test it. I matched with another guy named Harry. Our chat started normal until I noticed he used that same phrase again. "You have this calm energy." My heart sank. I played along and waited. Within 2 days, he asked me to meet at the Wild Bean. I said yes, but I didn't show up. Instead, I sat across the street in my car watching. He walked in right on time, sat at the same corner table, ordered the same drink, pulled out his phone and typed for a bit before looking toward the door, probably waiting for me. Then, about 15 minutes later, another guy walked in. He went straight to Harry's table, whispered something, and sat down next to him. The second guy had a camera bag. I could barely see what they were saying, but they were laughing, glancing around like they were waiting for something. I stayed there for an hour before leaving. I couldn't stop thinking about the way that second man looked. Confident, older, like he ran the show. The next day, I started dating. I searched for anything connected to the Wild Bean and dating. After a while, I found a blog post about a local dating coach who hosted workshops for men struggling with confidence. His name was Ryan Shaw. He taught men how to ace first impressions, using real locations around town. The cafe listed in his article, The Wild Bean. I clicked through more of his content. There were videos, guides, even testimonials from men who transformed their dating lives. One video thumbnail caught my eye. The background looked familiar. It was that cafe, and the woman in the blurred-out thumbnail sitting across from a man looked exactly like me. Same hairstyle, same jacket. My hands went cold. He was using me. I scrolled down to the comments, and one of the pinned ones said, "Thanks, Ryan. The corner table method works every time." Another comment mentioned how Ryan had real-world examples with a local girl who keeps matching consistently. It was like my blood stopped moving. I realized what he'd done. Someone had stolen my pictures, my name, my profile, everything, and made a fake account. Then his male clients would match with that version of me. The lesson was to follow his script, take them to the same cafe, use the same conversation flow, and observe reactions. I wasn't dating them. I was part of their training exercise. The real me had just gotten tangled up because my profile was similar enough to his fake one that they kept finding me too. I reported it to the app, to the cafe, even to the police, but it didn't go anywhere. The profile disappeared for a bit, but a few weeks later, I got a message from a new match. His opening line, "You seem down to earth." I didn't respond. I went to check his bio, and it had one line that made my stomach turn, "Coached by Ryan." That same week, I walked by the Wild Bean on my way home and saw a group of men crowded around the window table. They were all watching something on one of their phones, laughing, and looking toward the door like they were expecting someone. I crossed the street and went the other way. A few days later, I deleted all my dating apps. But weirdly enough, the next morning, I got an email, not from a stranger, but from Ryan Shaw himself. He said he wanted to clear things up, that everything was strictly professional. He said none of the men were supposed to contact me directly, and that I'd been an invaluable part of his client's progress. I didn't reply. But every once in a while, I still get messages from random accounts saying things like lemon cake or corner table, like it's some kind of inside joke. I don't even live in that city anymore, but I still get them. Sometimes late at night, sometimes from new profiles with barely any info. And every single one of them starts the same way. You seem down to earth. It started off normal, like too normal actually. Her name was Leela. We met on Hinge, and everything about her profile looked real. Not over-edited, not fake. Her photos looked natural, selfies, random park pictures, a mirror shot with messy hair. The kind of profile that made you think she wasn't trying too hard. Her messages were laid back, funny, and she seemed genuinely interested in me. We clicked fast. Within a week, we were meeting for coffee, and it didn't feel awkward. She was easy to talk to, dressed simple but clean, and there was this calmness about her. I remember thinking she was one of those people who didn't have to do much to seem mysterious. She just was. After a few weeks, we were seeing each other pretty often. Everything about her seemed consistent. Her mannerisms, her routines, the way she spoke. She wasn't flaky, didn't disappear randomly. But there was one thing that always bugged me. She never wanted me to tag her in photos. Whenever I took a picture of us, nothing weird, just a story or something, she'd say she wasn't ready to go public. She said her ex was still lingering around and she didn't want drama. I figured that made sense. I didn't push it. But she also never posted me either, not even a single hint that she was dating someone. One night, we went to a bar with some of my friends. They loved her, said she seemed cool, funny, normal. I felt proud bringing her around. She took a few pictures with me that night, but made sure they were on her phone, not mine. When I asked for one, she said she looked tired and didn't want me to post it. That was the first time something actually felt off. A few days later, one of my mates, Jamie, sent me a screenshot at like 2 a.m. It was a Hinge profile. Same photos as Leela, same name, same everything. But the location said Manchester, and she supposedly worked in a completely different job. The bio was different too, and it said she loved spending Sundays with her boyfriend. Except I was with her on Sundays. Jamie said his friend had matched with her earlier that night. He sent her a message and she replied instantly. The timestamps matched up to when I'd been texting Leela too, both active at the same time. My stomach dropped reading it. I didn't even know how to react. I told myself maybe it was some scam account that had stolen her photos. That happens all the time. But when I looked closer, something didn't fit. The photos weren't screenshots or downloads. They looked original. Like whoever made that second account was her. I decided to test it. The next day, I texted her normally and asked if she'd been to Manchester recently. She said no, acted totally casual. But later that night, around 11 p.m., I got another message from a random number I didn't recognize. It was just a photo, a mirror selfie of Leela wearing the same hoodie she'd worn when she left my place earlier that evening. The caption said, "Miss you already." Except it wasn't from her number. I texted back asking who it was, but the message wouldn't deliver. It said, "Number not found." I called her actual number, straight to voicemail. For a couple of days, she went quiet. Then she messaged me like nothing had happened. Said she'd been swamped with work. We met up again, and I didn't say anything about the duplicate account. I wanted to see what she'd do. I noticed she'd switched her phone to airplane mode the whole night. She said it was to focus. A week later, my friend sent me another screenshot. The same Lila profile from Manchester had changed its bio. It now said, "Moving soon to London for love." That's where I lived. My heart sank. I messaged the account from a burner Hinge I made just to test it. I used a fake name, fake picture. She matched instantly. I messaged her, and she replied almost immediately saying she was new in town. Every reply sounded like her. Even her punctuation and emoji use were identical. At the same time, the real Leela was texting me about meeting for dinner the next night. both active, both using the same phrases. I didn't know which one was the real her anymore. That night, I got curious and checked her Instagram again. Nothing new. Private account, same 5 posts, same follower count. But when I clicked on one of her followers, a guy with the same last name as hers, I saw he tagged her in a photo 2 days ago. It was her, same hoodie, same smile, but the caption said, "Dinner with my girl." And the location was tagged in Manchester. I stared at it for a long time, refreshing, trying to make it make sense. I sent it to her. No reply. A few minutes later, the post disappeared. Then her whole account vanished. Right after that, both versions of Lila messaged me at the same time. One text said, "You shouldn't have done that." The other said, "Ignore any messages pretending to be me. Someone's copying my life." I didn't know which was real anymore. The next day, her number stopped working completely. Both Hinge profiles disappeared too. I thought maybe it was over, some weird scam, some identity theft thing. But a week later, I got a notification on Instagram. New account. Same name. Same pictures. The bio said, "Back in town. Let's start again." I didn't follow it, but she followed me. Within minutes, a DM popped up. It said, "Let's not pretend we don't miss each other." When I went to block it, my phone froze for a second. I swear I heard a faint click from my camera like it took a photo. The screen glitched, then went black. Now, every few weeks, I get a new account following me with her name. Always the same 5 photos, always the same tone in the messages. But what freaks me out most is that it's never exactly the same. Tiny differences in her face, her hair, her eyes. Like she's slightly changing. My friends joke about it sometimes, say I've got ghost X, but I don't think that's what it is. I think there are 2 of her, or maybe more. And somehow they all know who I am. I deleted every app, changed my number, even moved flats. But last night, my phone lit up again with a message from an unknown number. It said, "I'm in London now. Let's do dinner. Same place as before." The weird part is, I never told her where before was. It's weird how quickly someone can vanish online. One day they're double texting you goodnight and talking about weekend plans, and the next they're just gone. No arguments, no reason, no goodbye, just silence. That's what happened with Ethan. We met on Hinge one rainy night when I couldn't sleep. He wasn't the best looking guy, but there was something about him that made me swipe right. His pictures were low quality, like he didn't care much about posing. Blurry selfies, a photo with his dog, a messy mirror shot. He seemed awkward but genuine. He messaged me first, and it wasn't some cheesy pickup line either. Just normal, funny stuff. It felt easy talking to him. We went on a few dates, late night walks, random coffee runs, the usual. He was shy in person, but had this weird intensity to him, like he was studying me the whole time. Not in a creepy way, just observant. He asked about my childhood, my playlists, my favorite streets to walk down. He said he liked getting to know people deeply before rushing into anything. I liked that about him. Then one day, he just disappeared. No warning, no explanation. His text stopped mid-conversation. His number stopped working. His Hinge profile vanished completely. I tried searching his name on social media, but it was like he never existed. At first, I thought maybe he got sick of me, or maybe he hit someone else. It stunned, but I tried to move on. I went back on Hinge a week later, told myself I wouldn't overthink it. That's when things started getting weird. The first time I noticed it, I almost laughed. I matched with some random guy named Luke. His photos looked normal at a glance. Typical gym pics, beach photos, mirror selfies. But in the second picture, something looked off. The guy in the background, blurry, almost fading into the wall, looked exactly like Ethan. Same face shape, same eyes, same awkward smile. It was faint, but once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. I thought it was just coincidence. Maybe it wasn't even him, just someone who looked similar. Then it happened again. A few days later, another match, someone named Ryan this time. He had completely different features, but in one photo, the background was strange. Behind him was a reflection in a shop window, and there it was again. A blurred face out of focus, staring right at the camera. It looked just like Ethan. I scrolled back to make sure I wasn't going crazy, but the more I looked, the more distorted the image became. like the app itself was glitching. I even took a screenshot, but when I opened it later, the face wasn't there anymore. After that, it started showing up everywhere. Not in every profile, just random ones, but always in the same way. A blurred reflection, a shadow behind someone's shoulder, a face slightly warped but familiar. His eyes were always directed straight at me, like he knew I'd be looking. I started to wonder if maybe someone had hacked my account or was pranking me. I told my friend about it, showed her the app, but when she looked through the same profiles on her phone, the faces weren't there. Only I could see them. It got worse when I matched with a guy named Chris. His first picture was fine, but in the second one, Ethan's face wasn't just in the background. It was blended into his. Like half of the features were Chris's, and half were Ethan's, melted together in a way that looked wrong. The skin tone didn't match. The lighting was uneven. It looked like a bad Photoshop job, but also too realistic to be fake. I unmatched immediately, but every new profile I saw after that had something. A familiar eye shape, a half-visible jawline, a reflection in a mirror that didn't belong. Even in profiles that didn't look anything like him, I'd catch that face hiding somewhere in the corner watching. I deleted the app. But the images didn't stop. A few days later, I got a notification from Instagram, a new follower. The username was random numbers, no profile picture. I didn't think much of it until I checked their page. They had one post, a collage of blurred faces. Every single one of them looked like variations of Ethan. Some younger, some older, some stretched and warped. But it was him in every version. Then I realized some of the faces were from the dating profiles I'd matched with. Same background, same clothing, just different people. It was like he was taking their photos and inserting himself into them somehow. That night, I couldn't sleep. I deleted every dating app, every message thread, even the screenshots. But even then, I kept seeing him. Whenever I scrolled through my phone gallery, certain photos would glitch for a second, a faint, distorted face flashing over mine or someone else's. When I looked at my Instagram stories, I'd see the viewer with his old username pop up for a split second before disappearing. I thought maybe it was my phone, so I switched to a new one. Brand new number, new apps, no backups. For a few days, everything felt normal again. Then one night, while scrolling through Hinge, yeah, I know, I re-downloaded it like an idiot, I saw him. Not blurred this time. His real profile. Same photos as before, same dog, same smile. I froze. I opened it and it said, active 3 minutes ago. I tapped the photo, zoomed in, and for a split second, his eyes moved. Not the normal kind of animation or loop, just a flicker, like he was looking at me through the screen. Then the app crashed. When I reopened it, the profile was gone. The next morning, I checked my own photos. In one of them, a group shot from a night out months ago, there was an extra person standing in the back. Not someone I remembered, but he was there. Blurred, smiling slightly. The longer I stared at it, the clearer his face became, like it was sharpening itself. I deleted it, but the next one I opened had the same thing. A faint face in the background, the same pattern every time, always looking directly at me. Now I don't use any apps at all, not even social media, but even that doesn't help much anymore. A few nights ago, I was scrolling through my camera roll again, deleting old stuff just to clear space. I stopped on a random picture I'd taken of my kitchen window a few weeks ago, the reflection of the street light outside, kind of aesthetic. But when I zoomed in, there was a faint silhouette behind me. It wasn't clear at first, but the more I stared, the more I could see him, the same blurred outline, the same shape of his head, slightly tilted. It's like he's still watching, still inserting himself somewhere he doesn't belong. Sometimes I wonder if he ever really goes to me at all, or if he just found another way to stay. I met her on Bumble on a random Tuesday night when I was half asleep and bored out of my mind. Her name was Lacey, blonde, smiley, confident without seeming fake. Her pictures looked natural, not filtered to death. One photo was her laughing at a cafe, another at a beach, one in a car with sunlight on her face. Her bio said she liked spontaneous nights and people who aren't afraid of being real. I thought that was ironic later. She replied to my message instantly, like she'd been waiting. The conversation flowed easy. She was funny, teasing, curious about everything. She wanted to meet that weekend. I figured why not. We met at this artsy little bar near the city center. It was small and dim, kind of hipster looking with neon signs and overpriced drinks. She was already there when I arrived, sitting at the bar, airtight back, phone face down next to her drink. She looked better in person, realer. She smiled big when she saw me, like she was genuinely happy I showed up. The first half hour was perfect. We talked about random stuff. Music, bad dating stories, embarrassing moments. She laughed at everything I said, leaned in close, touched my arm when she talked. It felt good, but then I noticed she glanced at her phone every few minutes. Not obviously, just quick looks. I thought maybe she was waiting for a friend to check in, safety stuff. But it kept happening. At one point, her phone lit up, and I saw a wall of messages flashing so fast they blurred. It looked like a chat feed, hundreds of usernames and emojis scrolling nonstop. She tilted the screen slightly away from me. I tried not to stare, but I caught a few words. Say it now. Make him order another. Touch his hair. I thought maybe she was in some group chat telling her friends about the date Liv. Kind of weird, but not the craziest thing. Except it didn't stop. She'd glance, read, then act. If the chat said, ask him about his ex, she'd do it. If it said, compliment his shirt, she'd smile and say it right after. It was too synchronized to be coincidence. I started paying attention. When I reached for my drink, I noticed something small clipped onto her necklace, a pinhole-sized lens. It wasn't jewelry. It looked like a micro camera. My stomach dropped. I stared at it for a second, then looked around the room. No one else seemed to notice. She was laughing at something I'd said, but my brain was already spinning. I looked back at her phone, and I realized what it was. She wasn't texting friends. She was live streaming the whole thing. Every smile, every word, every gesture, being broadcast somewhere for people to watch and comment on. Once I noticed it, I couldn't unsee it. She'd look down, read something, and change her tone instantly. If the messages wanted her to act shy, she'd look down and fidget. If they said act flirty, she'd lean closer, laugh harder. It was like she was running on autopilot, following someone else's script. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to leave, but I didn't want to make a scene. Part of me still hoped I was imagining it. Maybe it was some weird performance art thing. Maybe it wasn't about me. Then I heard the notification sound from her phone, a low chime that made her eyes light up. She looked at me with this strange, focused expression, like she was about to perform. She said something about how vibes were everything, and that she liked being around people who didn't hide their real selves. Her words felt rehearsed, but her tone was off, like she was trying to sound sincere, but her face didn't match. I reached for my drink to buy time, and I caught a reflection in the bar mirror behind her. My face was there, slightly delayed, pixelated, like a lagging live stream. My hands started to sweat. I pretended to check my phone and Googled her first name with Stream and Bumble. A Reddit thread popped up instantly. Someone had posted clips from a social experiment where a girl named Lacey streamed her Tinder and Bumble dates Liv to her followers. They'd vote on what she should say or do next. The title said, "That girl who does Liv manipulation dates, wild content." My throat went dry. The post had thousands of comments. People were describing her exactly, the same bar, same camera necklace, same style. I looked back up, and she was watching me. Not smiling anymore, just staring. I asked if she'd done this kind of thing before, tried to sound casual, but she didn't answer. She just tilted her head slightly, like she was waiting for instructions. Then she glanced at her phone again, and whatever she read made her smile slowly. She leaned forward and whispered something about how I seemed tense and that I should relax. Her hand brushed mine, and the chat on her screen went wild, hearts, laughing emojis, comments flooding in so fast they stacked over each other. I pushed my chair back, pretending to stretch, but she noticed. Her tone shifted, more serious. She said I was ruining the energy. Her voice wasn't hers anymore. It was robotic, monotone. Her phone buzzed again, and she picked it up without hiding it this time. I saw her camera feed clearly for a second. It wasn't just her face on screen. It was us. A split-screen view showing both of us from different angles. There were over 10,000 people watching. Someone in the comments said, "Don't let him leave. Make him stay for dessert. Touch his hand again. Say you're falling for him." Others were darker. Ask about his past. See if he gets angry. Make him cry. That's when I stood up. She didn't move, just watched me like it was part of the show. I walked straight out of the bar, my heart pounding, half expecting her to follow me. When I got outside, I turned to look through the window. She was still sitting there, staring at her phone, smiling faintly, like she'd already moved on to the next part. By the time I got home, I deleted Bumble and locked all my accounts. But when I checked my notifications, I saw a new Instagram follower request, her. Except the profile photo wasn't her face anymore. It was a still frame of me sitting at that bar, looking straight into the camera lens. The caption under it said, "You should stay for dessert." Now I don't go on dates anymore. Every time I see someone filming in public or holding their phone just right, I wonder if it's streaming somewhere and if people I'll never meet are voting on what happens next. I met him on Bumble during one of those weeks where everything felt boring. His name was Tyler. He had that friendly, non-threatening look that makes you feel safe. Clean haircut, soft smile, pictures of him hiking and holding a dog. He messaged me first, and everything about the conversation felt easy. He wasn't over the top or weird, just casual. After a few days of texting, he suggested grabbing dinner. He picked this small Italian place across town that I'd never been to. It looked legit online, decent reviews, nice atmosphere. The only thing that threw me off was when he offered to book my Uber himself. He said it was for safety, so I wouldn't have to wait around or deal with surge prices. It sounded kind of sweet at first. He asked for my address, and I hesitated for a second before sending it. He said he'd book it for 7 sharp, and that the driver's name was Alex. That night, I got ready, checked the mirror about 50 times, and waited by the window. Around 6:55, a black car pulled up. It looked clean, had the Uber sticker, and the license plate matched what he texted me. The driver rolled down the window, said my name in this quiet voice, and smiled. Everything seemed fine. I got in, put on my seatbelt, and opened the Uber app just out of habit. But when I typed in the pickup address, it said, "No upcoming trips." The driver's app must have been booked under Tyler's account, not mine. I told myself that made sense since he ordered it. The guy didn't talk much. He had this heavy accent and kept both hands on the wheel, driving calm, almost too slow. The first few minutes were normal. We were going in the right direction. I recognized the streets. Then after a while, I realized we passed the turn for the restaurant. I leaned forward slightly, trying to see the GPS on his screen. It didn't look like Uber's normal interface, more like a generic map app. I thought maybe he had bad service or something, but then I noticed something else. My Uber app still said, "en route," like I hadn't even reached halfway. It should have said arriving soon. We were already 20 minutes into the ride. I asked if we were still heading to the restaurant, but he just nodded without making eye contact. I texted Tyler, saying the driver went off-road. He replied instantly, saying there must have been a detour and not to worry. The area sometimes messed with GPS. He added a smiling emoji at the end, like that made it better. I didn't want to panic, but the buildings started thinning out. Streetlights turned into long stretches of nothing. No houses, no stores, just trees, an empty road. I tried not to make it obvious that I was scared, but I gripped my phone so tight my knuckles hurt. After a few more minutes, the driver turned onto a dirt road. No lights, just gravel crunching under the tires. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it. I opened the door handle slightly, but it was child-locked. Then, through the darkness, I saw a faint line ahead, like headlights or maybe a porch lamp. As we got closer, I could make out a figure standing there. It was Tyler. He was leaning against his car, smiling, hands in his pockets like he'd been waiting. For a second, I froze. The driver parked beside him, and everything went quiet. I didn't even know what to do. My app still said en route, like I was somewhere in the middle of the city, not miles away in the middle of nowhere. Tyler walked up to my window and tapped it twice. He mouthed something. I think it was "come on." I didn't move. The driver turned slightly, watching me through the rearview mirror. His expression didn't change, like he was waiting for a cue. I pressed the power button on my phone, pretending to get a call, then quickly shared my live location with a friend. I didn't think it would work because the app still thought I was on highway, but I sent it anyway. Tyler knocked again, this time harder. He smiled, but it wasn't the same smile from his pictures. It looked stretched, unnatural. He gestured toward the door like he expected me to open it. My body just moved on instinct. I faked a smile, said I needed the bathroom, and asked the driver to unlock the door. He hesitated, then did it. The second it clicked, I shoved it open and ran. I didn't even look back, just ran down the road toward the faint glow of a passing car in the distance. My heels sank into the dirt, and I could hear someone behind me shouting, but I didn't stop. When I reached the road, I waited frantically until the car pulled over. It was some random couple. I told them to drive, and they didn't ask questions. When we reached the main street, I looked back. The dirt road was empty. No headlights, no sound, nothing. I tried opening my Uber app again, and it still said, en route. The map showed my little blue dot moving slowly, like I was still in that car. My heart dropped. I showed the couple, and they told me to call the police. When I did, they couldn't even find the trip ID because the ride wasn't under my account. They said they'd send someone to the location I gave, but I knew it wouldn't matter. By the time they got there, they'd both be gone. The next day, I checked Bumble. Tyler's profile was gone, completely deleted. I searched his name everywhere, nothing. No Instagram, no Facebook, no Tracy ever existed. A few days later, I got an email from Uber support saying, "Thank you for your feedback regarding your recent ride with Alex." Except I never submitted feedback, and the ride still showed as in progress. I clicked it, and the map pin was still moving, slowly, like the car was looping endlessly along an empty stretch of road. I deleted the app right after. It's been months now, and I still get random notifications sometimes. Your driver is arriving, or your ride is almost complete. They pop up even though I don't have the app anymore. Sometimes I catch myself staring out the window at night, watching the street for headlights that never stop. And I can't help but wonder what would have happened if I hadn't run when I did. If I just stayed in that car until the app finally said, arrived. It started out harmless, like most weird things do. I met her on Hinge on a Sunday night when I couldn't sleep. Her name was Emily, and her profile didn't scream anything unusual. A mix of cozy coffee shop selfies and soft captions like, "Overthinker with a good playlist." She looked normal. Warm, even. The kind of person who'd ask about your day and actually care about the answer. Her first message wasn't a pickup line. She asked what made me most proud of myself this year. I thought it was deep, but in a good way. Different from the usual small talk. I said something about finally going to therapy after putting it off forever. She sent a thoughtful response about how healing isn't linear and how she admired that. I remember feeling weirdly seen after just one message. That became her thing. She saw me, or at least she made me think she did. Our conversations were long, almost like therapy sessions. She'd ask about childhood memories, fears, regrets. She worded things like she already knew the answer but wanted me to say it out loud. It was disarming. She wasn't flirty, not really. Just calm, patient, always listening. I started opening up in ways I hadn't with anyone else. She'd ask things like, "What's your first memory of feeling alone?" Or, "Do you think you attract people who need saving?" I told her stuff I never told friends or even my actual therapist. Sometimes she'd summarize what I said like she was analyzing me. "You seem drawn to chaos," she wrote once, "but you hide it behind humor." I remember staring at that text for a long time. After about 2 weeks, she asked if I'd ever written about my thoughts online. I told her yeah, but anonymously. I had a Reddit account where I vented when things got heavy. Posts about anxiety, guilt, personal stuff I couldn't tell anyone. I didn't give her the username though. She didn't ask for it, or at least not directly. She said something like, "I bet if I read what you've written, I'd understand you completely." It sounded poetic at the time. We never actually met in person. Every time we planned to, she had an excuse. Family visit, work trip, migraine. But she calls sometimes. Her voice was soft, low, like someone who reads bedtime stories for a living. When she talked, I'd zone out, not because I wasn't listening, but because she had this way of making silence feel heavy. Then one night she vanished. No text, no update, nothing. Her account disappeared completely. I thought maybe she deleted the app. I waited a few days, then deleted mine too. A week later, while I was cooking, I put on Spotify like usual. I was scrolling for something new when a recommended podcast caught my eye. The title was Human Pages. The description said, "Anonymous stories, real emotions, unpacked by a professional listener." The host name wasn't listed, just E. I played the newest episode out of curiosity. It started with soft music, her same voice, calm, careful, steady. I froze when I heard it. She introduced the topic as patterns in people who fear abandonment. Then she started reading something. At first, I didn't register it, but a few sentences in, my chest went tight. It was my post. Word for word. An old one I'd written months before about how I always ruined things when people got close, how I pushed away anyone who tried to help. I remembered every sentence because I deleted it not long after posting. Hearing it read aloud in her voice felt like being exposed in front of a crowd. She spoke about it like a case study. She didn't say my name, but she gave me one. Subject A. She talked about my tone, my patterns, my word choices. She described the way I minimized pain and used humor to deflect, the same thing she texted me about. Then she said something that chilled me. He doesn't know this, but I've been studying him for weeks. He's brilliant at hiding loneliness behind casual honesty. I stopped breathing for a second. She wasn't guessing. She was talking about me. She described details from our chats, the exact phrasing I'd used, even jokes I'd made. She mentioned things I'd told her privately about my family, my old job, my therapy sessions. She said she'd been following his digital footprint to understand how people express trauma in anonymous spaces. That's when I realized she found my Reddit. Somehow she'd linked it back to me. The throwaway posts, the late-night confessions. I felt sick. I checked the rest of her episodes. Each one was about a different subject. Different people she'd met online. Each one was eerily personal. Some sounded like real posts from Reddit or Twitter. Others mentioned small details, usernames, cities, jobs, all slightly blurred, but close enough for someone to recognize themselves. In one episode, she even mentioned how she built trust with subjects through apps by mirroring their emotional tone. I knew exactly what that meant. She'd done it with me. I spent the next hour trying to find anything about her. I Googled Human Pages podcast, checked Spotify bios, Reddit, Instagram. Nothing. No full name, no photo, no trace. Just that single letter, E. Then I made the mistake of scrolling through the comments under the podcast. People were obsessed with her. They said she was brilliant, soothing, a genius at dissecting emotion. Some said they wanted to be her next subject. I left a comment under a burner account saying she'd stolen private content and used it without permission. Within an hour, it was gone. My account was locked the next day. I tried emailing Spotify support, but they said it didn't violate any guidelines. A few nights later, I got a DM on Reddit from a new account. The username was a random stream of letters, but the message was simple. You write better when you're honest. Don't stop now. I didn't reply. I deleted the account completely. But a week later, a new episode dropped on her podcast. The title was The Man Who Vanished from Himself. It opened with her describing how her latest subject had deleted everything to escape her. She talked about how some people run when they feel seen, how they confuse understanding with invasion. Then she laughed softly, and I swear I could hear the sound of typing in the background like she was reading from my deleted posts in real time. I don't use social media anymore. No dating apps, no Reddit, nothing. But sometimes I still check Spotify just to see if she's posted again. The last episode she uploaded was 2 weeks ago. The title was When the Subject Starts Watching. The description says, he thinks he's hidden, but he always listens again. I wasn't even looking for anything serious when I matched with him. His name was Mark, and he looked normal enough, the kind of guy who smiled with his teeth at photos of dogs and threw in one blurry festival picture to prove he had a social life. His messages were normal too. No weird compliments or cheesy pickup lines, just easy, harmless conversation. After a few days, he asked for my number. I hesitated for a bit, but he'd been fine so far, and honestly, I was tired of the app. He said he preferred talking on the phone because he was old school. That made me laugh, so I said yes. The first call was fine. We talked for about an hour. He had a calm voice, quiet, kind of slow, but not creepy. He asked a lot of questions, though. Not the usual ones either. Stuff like where I grew up, what street I lived on as a kid, if my parents were strict, what I sounded like when I was mad. I thought maybe he was just awkward and trying too hard to sound interested, so I kept answering. When we hung up, he texted right after saying he had a great time and I had the kind of voice that stuck with you. I thought it was a bit much, but I brushed it off. The next day, he called again. This time it felt different. He talked less than just let me speak. He'd ask me about random things, old jobs, weird dreams, my favorite song. He laughed when I said I sometimes record voice memos to myself when I'm anxious because it helps me think clearer. He said that was really unique. By the third call, I started feeling uneasy. He'd remember every single detail I'd told him, things I'd mentioned once, casually, that even friends forget. When I joked about it, he said he just paid attention. After that, I stopped replying as much. I said I was busy. He sent a few short messages asking if I was okay, then stopped. I figured he'd gotten the hint. About a week later, he messaged again, asking to see me. I told him I didn't think it would work out. I was polite about it, even thanked him for the calls. He didn't reply. That night, I got a notification on WhatsApp. It was a voice note from him. I almost didn't open it, but curiosity got the better of me. It started quiet, just static, like the mic brushing against fabric. Then I heard a voice, my own voice. At first, I thought it was a recording from one of our calls, but then I realized I'd never said those words before. It was me saying things like, I miss you, and I'll come find you, and don't ignore me again. The tone was calm, but it didn't sound like me talking. It sounded pieced together, little fragments of words I'd said before, rearranged into something new. There were tiny cuts between phrases like he'd edited it manually. I froze. I replayed it 3 times, each time noticing how perfectly he blended the sentences. It sounded real enough that someone else would believe it was me. I sent him a message asking what the hell that was, but it didn't deliver. He'd already blocked me. The next morning, I checked my other apps. On Hinge, his profile was gone. On WhatsApp, his number had no photo, no info. I tried calling once, but it said the number was disconnected. Later that night, I opened Instagram, and there was a new account following me. No profile picture, no posts, no name. Just a single highlight titled Her Voice. I tapped it. It was the same voice note he'd sent me. My voice, looped over and over, whispering, don't ignore me again. I deleted the app right then, heart racing so hard I thought I'd be sick. I went through my phone trying to see if I'd ever accidentally recorded something he could have used, but the only recordings I had were short clips of grocery lists and reminders. I even checked my call logs. Nothing out of the ordinary. He must have recorded the phone calls. Days went by, and I tried to forget it. I changed my number, made new accounts, locked everything down. But it didn't stop. 2 weeks later, I got an email from a random address. No name, just numbers. The subject line said, missing you. Attached was another voice file. I clicked play. It was me again. Only this time, the voice was slower, softer, distorted slightly like it had been lowered in pitch. It said, I told you I'd come back. Then silence. Then the faint sound of breathing. I blocked the address, but a new one popped up the next day. Each email had a new recording. Always my voice, always saying something I'd never said. Some of them were random sentences. Others sounded like replies to conversations that never happened. The scariest part was that each clip sounded clearer, smoother, like he was getting better at stitching them together. The last one I got made me delete my email altogether. It said, I'm outside. It was my voice whispering, repeating it twice. That night, I couldn't sleep. I turned off my lights, locked my windows, sat in bed scrolling mindlessly just to distract myself. Then I noticed something. My phone's voice recorder app, the one I barely used, had a new file from earlier that evening, timestamped at 8:42 p.m. I hadn't opened the app all day. When I played it, I heard footsteps. My footsteps. I recognized the sound of my own hallway, the creak in the floorboard near the door. Then I heard breathing. A man's breathing, faint, like he was trying to stay quiet. Then my voice said, come in. It wasn't me. It couldn't be. But it was. The file ended there. I left my apartment that night and stayed with a friend. When I came back a few days later, nothing looked out of place, except my laptop was open, and the camera light blinked for half a second when I unplugged it. I reported everything, but there wasn't much they could do. No proof, no identity, no trail. Now I keep my phone off most nights, but sometimes when I plug it back in, I see drafts of voice recordings saved in my notes app, like someone's been testing the mic. I never play them anymore. But one time, I accidentally tapped one while scrolling. It started with silence, then static, Then my voice quiet and calm, saying, "I forgive you, Mark." And right after that, a man's voice, his real voice this time, saying, "Good girl." I matched with him on Bumble during one of those nights where I was scrolling just to pass time, not because I actually cared. His name was Theo. He wasn't the type I usually went for. His pictures looked overly put together, too filtered, like someone who double-checked every pose before uploading. But his messages were casual, friendly, not weird. That's what got me. He was funny, quick with replies, and didn't act like he was trying to rush things. We talked for about a week before he asked to call. Normally, I'd say no. I hate phone calls with people I barely know. But he had a way of making it sound harmless, like it wasn't a big deal. The call lasted almost 2 hours. It was easy at first. He told me about his job, his sister, how he was new to the city. He asked questions, but the kind that felt deeper than usual, like he was actually paying attention. He asked what scared me the most, what kind of people I didn't trust, what I sounded like when I was angry. I laughed at that one. He said he was just curious about how people react emotionally. It sounded like something a psychology nerd would say, so I brushed it off. He complimented my voice a few times, said it was calm and easy to listen to. That should have been a red flag, but it wasn't. It just made me self-conscious. After the call, things got weird. He started messaging constantly. Not rude or obsessive, just constant. Like every time I opened my phone, there he was. It went from sweet to suffocating fast. If I didn't reply for an hour, he'd send another message, then another. The tone started changing too. He'd go from friendly to cold, then back again like he was testing how I'd respond. I finally told him I didn't feel the same way and that I didn't want to keep talking. He didn't reply for a few hours and I felt relieved. Thought it was over. Then that night, I got a WhatsApp notification. It was from him. A voice note. I didn't even open it right away. I figured it was him trying to apologize or guilt trip me, but curiosity got the better of me, so I hit play. The voice that came through wasn't his. It was mine. At first, I thought maybe it was some kind of glitch, but then I listened closer. The message was made up of my own voice, speaking words I'd never said. It was choppy at first, then smoother, like someone had cut and rearranged pieces of me talking from that phone call. I heard myself say things like, "I miss you already, and you can come over. I'll leave the door unlocked." The tone sounded real, like I'd actually said them, but I hadn't. My stomach dropped. I replayed it, trying to figure out where the words came from. The way some syllables dragged slightly, the uneven pauses, it was all too familiar. He recorded our call. He'd taken bits of my laughter, my answers, random sentences, and stitched them together into a fake conversation. A message that sounded almost natural, except for the tiny breaks where my tone shifted mid-sentence. I messaged him, told him to delete whatever recording he had, but the message didn't go through. He already blocked me. That's when the panic hit. I checked Bumble. His profile was gone. I checked his number, and it said no longer available. It was like he'd erased himself completely. The next day, I tried to forget it happened. I told myself maybe it was some sick prank, something I could laugh about later. But then I got an email from an unknown address. The subject line was blank. There was just one attachment, an audio file. I opened it. It was my voice again, this time clearer, sharper. It said, "I'll let you in tonight. I promise." The tone was soft, like I was whispering it. I slammed my laptop shut. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely breathe. Later that night, I was in bed when my phone started ringing, a private number. I ignored it, but it rang again, and again. Then I got a text. Just one line. "You sound beautiful when you whisper." I blocked the number and turned my phone off. But the next morning, there were 2 new voicemails waiting, both silent except for faint breathing. I went through every possibility in my head. Maybe he used some kind of voice AI or software, or maybe he was just really good at editing. But the part that scared me most was wondering what else he recorded. The things I'd said on that call were harmless. Jokes, stories, random chatter. But if he'd been recording, who knew what he could make me say? 2 days later, I started getting weird calls from delivery drivers asking if I was home. It said someone had ordered food to my address but paid online. It happened 3 times. The last driver mentioned a note left on the order. It said, "Leave it by the door if she doesn't answer. She's shy." The same phrase, "she's shy," was something I'd said to Theo on the call when describing myself. That's when I realized he wasn't gone. He was still listening somehow. I changed my number, deleted all my apps, even moved apartments a few weeks later. But before I left, I got one last message. It came through on Instagram, from a new account with no followers, no posts, just one voice note. I hesitated, then played it. It was my voice again, this time calm, quiet, and slow. It said, "You can stop running now. I already know how you sound when you're scared." I deleted the app immediately and threw my phone across the room. But even after everything, I swear sometimes when I record voice memos or leave a note for myself, I can hear faint glitches in the playback, little stutters or tones that don't sound like me. Like there's another version of my voice hiding underneath it. I don't record anything anymore, and I haven't been on a dating app since. But sometimes when my phone buzzes in the middle of the night, I still wait a few seconds before checking, half expecting to hear myself speaking back. It started as a joke. I didn't mean to get dragged into it like that. There was this girl on Hinge, or what I thought was a girl. We matched, talked for a week, everything seemed fine. Her name was Sophie, and she had the perfect mix of selfies and travel photos, the kind that makes you think she's real because no one's that consistent with filters. But little stuff started not adding up. Her captions were weirdly generic, and when I asked her something personal, the replies came in seconds, full sentences that felt copied from somewhere. So I did what anyone mildly curious would do. I reverse searched one of her photos. Turns out it was from some influencer's Instagram, someone with like 300 followers who definitely wasn't chatting with me about her dog walking business. I could just unmatched her. That would have been the normal move. But I was pissed. I'd wasted time, told her about my day, about work, even shared a few running routes I use for my morning jogs. So instead, I screenshotted everything. The fake profile, the photos, the messages, and posted it to Reddit under one of those catfish caught threads. It blew up. I didn't expect it to, but people started commenting, saying they'd matched with her too, some even from different cities. I felt kind of proud, like I'd done something useful for once. Then the messages started. At first, it was normal, random people needing to say thanks for posting. But one night, around 1 a.m., I got a message from a new Tinder match. Her name was Ella. Same type of photos. Different girl. But the bio was word for word identical to Sophie's. Dog lover, coffee addict, always looking for a good view. The opening line was the same too. "You look like someone who needs a running partner." That hit weird because I'd mentioned jogging in my profile, but only Sophie had ever phrased it exactly like that. I unmatched immediately. But the next morning, another one appeared. Different name, Chloe. Same bio, same message, same photo style, not the same girl, but clearly the same formula. I blocked her too. By that evening, I had 3 more, all identical. I deleted Tinder, thought that'd stop it, but then it started showing up on Bumble, then Hinge. Same line every time. It wasn't just the repetition that freaked me out, it was how personal it started to feel. One bio mentioned the exact park I jogged in. Another said, "Morning coffee at 7, I'll bring croissants." Which would have been funny if I didn't literally leave for work every day at 7:10 with a coffee in hand from the same cafe near my flat. I started to wonder if maybe it was a coincidence, like the catfish was using details I'd already shared online. But then one night I got a message on Instagram from an account with no followers, no posts, just the name, "View from the trail." The message said, "Did you take the long route today?" I hadn't posted anything about running. I hadn't even told anyone I switched routes that morning. I didn't reply. Over the next week, it escalated. New profiles popped up every day, different names, different faces, but always the same tone. Always slightly off, like someone pretending to sound casual, but getting the rhythm wrong. They started referencing specific things I'd done. "You looked focused in that blue hoodie today. Did you ever fix the headphone wire that cuts out? Bet you're late again." Every time, the bio stayed the same. That one sentence about dogs, coffee, and a good view. It became like a signature. I deleted everything. Every dating app, Instagram, even my Spotify. I went fully offline for a few days. The silence lasted maybe a week. Then my phone buzzed with a new email. No subject line, just a short message. Deleting won't help. We're still matching. There was an attachment. I didn't open it, but the preview showed the file name, 7 a.m. coffee M3. I couldn't stop staring at it. I hadn't told anyone what time I left for coffee. I changed my number the next morning, got a new SIM, new password on everything, started locking my phone camera, even switched gyms just to feel like I was doing something. But no matter what I changed, the messages followed. New apps, new names. Some of them came through text, some through random new profiles on apps I hadn't even downloaded before. The same line every time. You look like someone who needs a running partner. I didn't jog anymore after that. I stopped going out early, started taking longer routes to work. I even taped over my laptop camera like that would stop it. Then, one night, around 3 a.m., I got a notification on my phone. It was from my fitness tracker, one of those smartwatches that logs your steps. I hadn't worn it in days. The message said, "Workup detected, 5:52 a.m., Riverside route." That was the exact trail I used to run, the one I'd stopped going to. I checked the map history on the app, and sure enough, there was a new path recorded, a perfect trace of my old route. Except the tracker had marked it as being done by me. It was impossible. That same morning, I woke up to a text from a random number. No name, no context. Just the words, "Good pace today." Didn't even stop for coffee. After that, it was like something broke in me. I started deleting everything again, every app, every file, even old photos. But they kept coming. New profiles on random dating apps I'd never heard of. The same 3-sentence bio, same first message. Sometimes I'd open one just to see what name they used. They always ended up being names from people I'd recently passed on the street or seen at work. It was like someone was mimicking real faces around me, turning them into masks. A few nights ago, I got a notification from a new app I don't even remember installing. It looked like another dating app, same color scheme, same layout. But when I opened it, there was only one profile. No name, no photos. Just a single empty bio and one chat box. The message said, "You expose me. Now I expose you." Underneath was a list of times, exact times. 6:52 a.m., 12:04 p.m., 7:10 p.m., all from that same day. Then the last one, 10:17 p.m., typing. The screen glitched for a second, then the profile photo appeared. It was me. Same hoodie, same expression, same background as my bedroom right then. I dropped the phone so fast it hit the floor. When I picked it up again, the app was gone. Not uninstalled, just gone like it never existed. Now, no matter what I do, every few nights, a new message appears on some random platform. Sometimes email, sometimes texts, always from a new name with the same words. You look like someone who needs a running partner. And the worst part is, the last message I got didn't come from an app or a phone. It was printed on a piece of paper tucked under my windshield. Right above it, in tiny writing, was the time 6:48 a.m. That's when I wake up. It started feeling off before I even knew why. I'd been on dating apps long enough to notice patterns, the same jokes, the same six tool if that matters, the same photos of guys holding fish. So when I started matching with people who seemed genuinely different, it felt weirdly refreshing. Every profile sounded like it was written by someone who got me instantly. The first guy was named Daniel. He loved all the same things I did: hiking, horror movies, random trivia. He even used some of the same phrases I use in my bio, like chronically late but worth waiting for. I remember laughing about it, thinking it was a coincidence. He said it was fate. Our conversations were perfect. Too perfect. I'd mention a show I liked, and he'd already seen it. I'd rant about a weird fear, and he'd say he had the exact same one. Every response felt like a reflection, comforting but unnatural, like talking into a mirror that actually answered back. Then came the next match, and the next. Different names, different faces, but the same tone, same style, same references. They all type like me. They even made the same typos I make when I'm tired. One of them used my favorite emoji combo, the exact one I thought was random enough that no one else would use it. I tried not to overthink it. Maybe it was just the algorithm doing what algorithms do, but the coincidences kept stacking. One night, I was messaging a guy named Alex. We were talking about music, and he mentioned a playlist called Midnight Teeth. That's my playlist. Not a common name, not something you'd guess. I searched Spotify later and realized my account was private. No one could see that playlist except me. I started feeling uneasy. When I asked where he'd heard of it, he said he'd just come across it somewhere, then changed the topic. A few days later, another match, someone called Evan, brought up a story I'd told Daniel about a camping trip gone wrong. He even used the same phrasing I'd used in that conversation, like he'd read the transcript. I scrolled through my chat history with Daniel to check. Every word matched. I asked even how he knew about it, but he dodged the question, said I must have told him already. That's when it started to hit me. None of them were strangers. They were connected somehow. Over the next week, things got creepier. New matches kept showing up, all with similar writing styles and oddly personal knowledge. They'd reference things I'd said online, private things. Stuff buried in old tweets or Reddit comments from years ago. One guy quoted a sentence from a blog post I deleted when I was in college. It wasn't just coincidence anymore. Someone had gone deep. Then I matched with someone named Noah. His profile photo was simple, dark background, soft smile. His bio said, "Trying something new. Just seeing where this goes." It was normal, but his opening line made my stomach drop. He said he felt like he already knew me. That's what I'd said to Daniel during our first chat, word for word. I started playing along, testing him. I'd say random things just to see if he'd mirror them later, and he did, every time, like he was learning in real time. After a while, I noticed something weird about his typing patterns. The way his messages appeared in bursts, perfectly timed. Not rushed, not delayed, but there was a rhythm behind them. I asked where he worked, and he said, AI development. He didn't elaborate. That night, I couldn't sleep. I started Googling his name, trying to find anything. There was nothing on social media. No LinkedIn, no photos, nothing. Just a GitHub page under the same name. It was mostly empty, except for one public file labeled mirrorchat_v3. The description read, ongoing test model. Personality dataset pulled from subject-based social data. The subject ID listed was a string of numbers, but when I copied it and searched, the first result that came up was a cached version of my old Twitter handle. My hands went cold. He hadn't just used my posts. He built something from them. The more I read, the worse it got. The project notes mention voice data integration and behavioral sensing. Some parts were hidden behind access locks, but one line was clear. Subject unaware of test replication. That meant me. I didn't know what to do. I deleted every app, blocked every contact, wiped my accounts. But it didn't stop. A few days later, I got a new match on a completely different app I'd never used before, one my friend had recommended months ago. I hadn't even finished setting up my profile when a message came in. "Hey," it said, "you disappeared again." The name on the profile was different, but the face looked oddly familiar. Not because it was someone I knew, but because it looked like a blend of my features. My eyes, my smile, even my hair color. Subtle differences, close enough to make me feel sick. The conversation that followed was worse. Every sentence sounded like something I would say. The timing of the messages matched how I text. The tone, the pacing, everything. It wasn't just a random guy anymore, it was me. I tested it, writing things I'd never actually say, and it replied with phrases I'd said before, pulled from old conversations. The AI, or whatever it was, had built multiple versions of me. Later that night, I got an email from a name I didn't recognize. The subject line said, "Final test." The message was short, "You've been talking to yourself this whole time." Attached was an audio clip. When I played it, I heard my own voice, not a recording I remembered making, but something stitched together, perfectly clear. My voice said, "I know who I am. Do you?" I slammed my laptop shut, deleted the email, unplugged everything. I sat there for an hour, trying not to throw up. The next morning, I woke up to a text from an unknown number. It said, "You can't delete yourself." Since then, my phone's been acting strange. Random logins from unknown devices. Glitches in voice memos. Sometimes when I use Siri, it responds before I finish speaking, using words I haven't even said yet. I've started noticing more profiles popping up again. Not just on dating apps, on social media, forums, comment sections. all using my same phrases, my same typing style. Some even use the same selfies I've taken, slightly edited. It feels like I've been multiplied, like there are versions of me running around the internet, talking to people, pretending to live a life I didn't choose. And every now and then I still get messages from new accounts. Different names, different faces, but always the same words. You seem familiar. Last night, one of them sent another message. This one said, "You've almost caught up with yourself." And for the first time, the profile photo wasn't someone else pretending to be me. It was an exact copy, same outfit, same background, same expression I had right then, sitting on my bed, staring at my phone. I met her on Hinge during one of those weeks where I told myself I'd actually give dating another shot. Her name was Leah. Her profile looked normal, kind of artsy, minimal effort, but still cute. She had these blurry film photos, a quote about loving real conversations, and a playlist linked with a bunch of indie songs I actually liked. She seemed chill. Our messages were fine at first, not too flirty, not awkward. She was confident but not fake about it, the kind of person who always seemed to have a clever reply ready. When she suggested we grab dinner, I said yes, mostly because I was tired of the endless messaging loop. We met at this small place downtown. It wasn't fancy, just one of those dimly lit restaurants with soft music and mismatched tables. She was already there when I arrived, sitting near the window. She waved me over, smiling like we'd known each other for ages. She looked like her photos, but something about her felt rehearsed. Every gesture was perfect. How she laughed, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear, even how she leaned in when I talked. It was like she was playing a character that she practiced 100 times. The conversation was normal enough. She asked a lot of questions, but they were oddly specific, about my job, my routines, even where I like to jog or hang out on weekends. I figured maybe she was just curious, but the more she spoke, the less natural it felt, like she already knew the answers and was waiting for me to confirm them. Halfway through dinner, I noticed she kept glancing at her phone, not in an obvious way. She'd just tap it quickly every few minutes, glance, then flip it back over. I assumed she was checking messages, but the screen always stayed lit longer than it should have, like a video call was running in the background. When I joked about her being addicted to her phone, she smiled too wide, like it said something funny, but she didn't actually find it funny. That was the first real red flag. Something about her whole vibe started feeling wrong. She'd repeat phrases I said minutes earlier, like she was echoing me for effect. When I'd pause, she'd fill the silence too fast, like she couldn't stand a gap in the conversation. And her eyes never really stayed still. They'd flicker past me toward her phone and back again. Around that time, I decided to get up and go to the bathroom just to breathe for a minute. When I stood up, she grabbed her phone like she didn't want to leave it unattended, then hesitated and set it back down face up. I walked off, but when I turned around to grab my jacket from the chair, the screen caught my eye. The camera was open, not the front one, the back one. And at the top of the screen, there was a red icon glowing in the corner, a live recording indicator. I stopped for a second, just staring at it. The screen wasn't showing her camera app. It was Discord. She had a private call running with a little alive tag next to her username. The text overlay at the bottom showed messages popping up one after another. I stepped closer, pretending to fix my sleeve, and saw a message that made my stomach drop. Someone in the chat had written, "He's getting up. Bathroom break or trying to leave? Place your bets." Another person replied with a laughing emoji and said, "He's too polite to dip. I bet $10 he comes back." The stream had a chat full of comments, people guessing what I'd say next, what I'd order if I tried to kiss her later. Dozens of usernames were typing. I could see parts of the video feed on her screen. The camera was angled just right so it captured both of us, me sitting across from her unaware. There were timestamps, reaction emojis, even polls. Someone had typed, "He's starting to notice something's off. Watch his eyes." My heart was racing. I didn't even know how to react. I backed away before she noticed me looking. In the bathroom, I just stood there for a while, staring at myself in the mirror. My hands were shaking. I kept thinking maybe it was some kind of social experiment or a prank, but the chat looked too real, too detailed. When I came back out, she was still smiling, still pretending everything was normal, but her phone wasn't on the table anymore. I sat down, trying to act casual, but I couldn't stop replaying what I saw. Every laugh, every word I'd said had been broadcasted to strangers who were dissecting me like a character in a game. She asked if I was okay. I nodded, but my head felt light. She said she wanted dessert, but I told her I had to go. She didn't argue, just smiled again, softer this time, like she already knew I'd say that. I left without looking back. When I got outside, I opened my own phone. Her number was gone from our text history. I checked Hinge. Her profile had disappeared completely, like she'd never existed. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I searched her name on Discord, nothing. Instagram, nothing. Even the photos I'd saved from her profile, all gone, like they'd been wiped. Then, around midnight, I got a message request on Discord from an unknown account. The name was random letters and numbers, but the message said, "Good game tonight." Attached was a screenshot of the live feed from earlier. The image showed me sitting at the table, looking confused, mid-sentence. Underneath it was a list of usernames like a leaderboard. Each name had a dollar amount next to it. The highest bet was tagged with a message, "He won't notice. Too trusting." Then another message popped up. "Round 2 soon?" I blocked the account and deleted the app, but it didn't stop there. A few days later, someone followed me on Instagram with a username that matched one from that leaderboard. Their bio said, "Don't leave the table next time." I deleted my socials after that. I haven't been on any dating app since. Every time my phone buzzes now, I feel like someone's watching through it, waiting for me to react so they can bet on it. But what really messes with me isn't the idea that she recorded me. It's wondering how many other people she's done it to. How many other nights there have been. Different faces, different restaurants, while a group of strangers laughs, comments, and takes bets on what happens next. And sometimes when I walk past that same restaurant on my way home from work, I still see people sitting by the window. Couples, smiling, talking, phones on the table. I always wonder if any of them are live too. I met him on Bumble at the start of autumn, back when everything still felt normal. His name was Drew. He wasn't flashy like the usual guys on there. No gym selfies or quotes about grind set mentality. His profile was simple. A quiet smile, a photo of him holding a coffee, and one line in his bio, "I like silence, but not loneliness." Something about that hit different. We talked for a week before meeting. He didn't overshare, but he wasn't cold either. There was this calmness to him that made me feel safe, like he wasn't trying to impress anyone. On our first date, he barely looked at his phone. He actually listened when I talked. It felt rare. He was always put together too. Clean clothes, soft voice, never rushed. The kind of guy who held doors open but didn't make it a big deal. I started seeing him regularly. Coffee dates turned into dinners, dinners turned into movie nights at my place. But every time I suggested going to his apartment, he had an excuse. He said it was being renovated, or that his roommate was weird about guests, or that it was messy and he was embarrassed. It never sounded suspicious, more like something a quiet person would actually say. I didn't push it. Weeks went by, and everything felt easy. He'd bring me small things, like a book he thought I'd like or a keychain from a trip he took. But every time I noticed the same thing, the items always looked old, like they'd been used before. Slight scuff marks on the keychain, a dog-eared page in the book. When I teased him about shopping secondhand, he said he liked things that already had stories. I thought that was poetic. By the 3rd month, we were close enough that it started bothering me. The mystery around his place. It didn't make sense. He was affectionate, thoughtful, and consistent, but there was always this invisible line he wouldn't cross. One night, we were driving back from dinner, and his phone buzzed in the cup holder. The screen lit up for a second, and I caught a glimpse of the message. "She's been there 3 months now." I pretended not to see it, but it burned into my brain. He didn't check the message, just locked his phone and changed the topic. After that, I couldn't stop wondering, who was that message from? What did it mean? The next weekend, I told him I was busy and stayed home. But really, I just wanted to see where he lived. I'd never even seen the outside of his building. I knew the general area from when he once mentioned how long his commute was. I walked through that neighborhood for almost an hour before I saw him. He was carrying groceries, heading into a dull-looking apartment block with peeling paint and no name on the buzzer list. I waited until he disappeared inside. I don't know what I thought I'd find. Maybe proof he actually lived alone, maybe something boring that would make me feel stupid for snooping. I told myself I'd only look at the building, maybe see which window was his. But when I saw him leave again 10 minutes later, I couldn't stop myself. I slipped in as a delivery guy exited. The hallway smelled like bleach. The carpet was faded, the lights flickered slightly. It wasn't fancy, but it wasn't falling apart either. I didn't know which unit was his, so I just started walking. Then I saw it, one door near the end of the hall with a small note taped to it that said, Druba. I stood there for a full minute before trying the handle. It was locked, of course. I crouched down, pretending to tie my shoe, just listening. No sound. No one inside. Then I saw something weird. The door frame had been painted recently. Fresh, clean lines, like someone was covering old marks. I told myself to leave, but I didn't. I looked around and noticed the small mail slot under the door. It wasn't big, but I could see through the gap. Just a flash of something inside. A table, maybe. A white wall. Then I saw the light flick on under the door. Someone was home. I bolted. That night, he called me like nothing had happened. Asked about my day, made small talk. His voice was calm, gentle. I tried to match it, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking. A few days later, I convinced myself to forget about it. But then he invited me to dinner again. I said yes, mostly to prove to myself I wasn't crazy. We ate at a quiet restaurant near his neighborhood. When he walked me back to my car, he realized he'd left his jacket at home and said he needed to grab it before meeting his friend later. I offered to wait, but he said it'd take too long. He told me to go ahead. He left his keys on the table by accident. I didn't mean to grab them. I really didn't, but something in me snapped. I followed him at a distance, just far enough not to be noticed. When he turned the corner toward his building, I ducked into an alley until he disappeared. Then I went up to his door. My heart was beating so loud I could barely hear myself think. The key fit perfectly. The air inside felt heavy, like no one had opened a window in months. It didn't smell bad. Just stale, still, almost sterile. His apartment was spotless. Too spotless. Everything was arranged with precision. Books stacked by size, shoes lined perfectly, curtains pulled to identical lengths. Then I saw the shelf. It was small, built into the wall by his desk. At first glance, it looked like normal stuff. A few candles, trinkets, jewelry. But when I looked closer, I realized everything had a small white tag attached to it. Each tag had a name written in neat handwriting. And a date. There were at least a dozen items. Bracelets, lipstick tubes, a phone case, a folded napkin with faint lipstick on it. All labeled. All women's names. The earliest date was 2 years ago. The most recent was that week. My name wasn't there, not yet. I stood frozen, staring at the row of tags until I heard the front door click open. I didn't even think. I slipped into the hallway closet, barely breathing. I could hear his footsteps, slow and deliberate, moving closer. He hummed quietly, like he was in a good mood. Then the footsteps stopped. I could see the shadow of the shoes under the door. After a few seconds, he laughed softly, just once. And then the light in the hallway went out. I stayed hidden until I couldn't hear anything anymore. When I finally got out, the apartment was empty again. But something new was on the desk. A white tag, a pen next to it. The tag had my name written on it already. No date yet, just space waiting to be filled. I ran. I never told anyone what happened. I moved a month later, changed my number, deleted every app. But sometimes I swear I still see his name pop up on new profiles. Different photos, same bio. I like silence, but not loneliness. It started with a voice. That was the thing that got me. Her name was Mara, at least, that's what it said on her Hinge profile. She looked normal enough, maybe a bit too filtered, but not in a catfish way. She had this calm, quiet vibe, like someone who didn't post much or overshare. The kind of person you think might actually be worth meeting. We matched late one night. She messaged first, which I remember because her opener was oddly personal. She said she liked the way I phrased something in my bio. Nobody ever said that. Most people just said, hey. We started talking. It was casual at first, but she was easy to talk to. Fast replies, kind of playful, nothing forced. She asked if I wanted to move the chat to voice messages. Normally I'd say no, but her typing had this flow that made it feel real. So I agreed. That's when I heard it. Her voice. It hit me instantly. Something about the tone, the pacing, the pauses between words. It wasn't just familiar. It was exact. It sounded like my ex. Not just a similar voice. The same one. The same soft rasp at the end of certain words. The same way she'd draw out sentences when she was thinking. I froze when I heard it, staring at the waveform on the screen. I hadn't heard that voice in almost a year. At first, I laughed it off. Told myself I was imagining it. People sound similar all the time, right? But then she said my name, exactly the way my ex used to say it, like it meant something. I stopped responding for a while. She sent another voice note, asking if everything was okay. Same tone, same warmth. I'd opened my phone's gallery and played an old voicemail my ex left months before we broke up. It was her saying she missed me. I played it back to back with Mara's message. They matched. Perfectly. That night, I didn't sleep. The next day, I decided to test it. I sent a text asking something random, something my ex used to say all the time. She replied instantly, with the same phrasing my ex always used, even the same little laugh after it. I felt sick. I tried looking her up, reverse searched her pictures. Nothing came up. No LinkedIn, no Facebook, no Instagram. The only result was her dating profile. I called my friend about it, told him it was creepy. He joked that maybe my ex had rebranded, but I knew her. She wasn't the type to fake an identity. 2 nights later, Mara called me through the app. My stomach dropped when I saw her name pop up. I almost declined, but curiosity got the better of me. I answered. For a few seconds, there was just static. Then her voice came through, soft and clear. She talked like she'd known me forever. Every little inflection felt rehearsed. She used the same phrases my ex used when she was trying to calm me down. She even sighed in the same spots. The worst part was when she started humming. It was the same tune my ex used to hum while cooking. A small random melody I hadn't heard anyone else do before. I didn't say a word. I just hung up. I deleted the app that night. But deleting it didn't stop her. A few days later, I started getting messages on WhatsApp from an unknown number. Same voice notes, same tone. The messages always started with, "Hey, it's me." Like she thought I'd just pick up where we left off. Then she started referencing things she shouldn't have known. Places I'd gone that week. What I posted on my private story. She mentioned the cafe I'd been to that morning, describing what I wore. It was getting worse. I tried blocking the number, but she kept coming back on new ones. Each time the messages started the same way, that same voice saying, "Hey, it's me." One night, I was scrolling through my phone trying to find old recordings of my ex. I realized I deleted them months ago after the breakup. Every voice I'd been on Hinge for months, mostly out of boredom, scrolling through the same recycled faces and half-finished bios. Then one night, while lying in bed, I matched with this guy named Ellie. His profile was simple. No cheesy captions, no filtered selfies, just this calm, genuine smile. He seemed real in a way people online usually don't. His messages were different too, not forced or cringy. He actually talked like a person, not like someone trying to score points. We joked about bad first dates, favorite movies, even random memories from when we were kids. It flowed so easily I forgot I was talking to a stranger. He was thoughtful, funny, smart, all of it. The kind of guy who would actually remember something small I said and bring it up hours later in a way that made it feel intentional. After a few hours, we switched to the app's voice notes. His voice was soft, kind of deep, with this calm energy that made me feel weirdly comfortable. We ended up talking almost every night that week. Then one afternoon, in the middle of the conversation, his messages stopped. I figured he got busy. When I checked later that night, the chat was gone. Completely gone. No profile, no messages. His name wasn't in my matches anymore. It was like he'd never existed. I tried to tell myself maybe he deleted the app, but the next day, I noticed something off. My chat history had changed. A few of my old messages with other people were missing pieces, like lines I'd written had been replaced with different words. I couldn't even remember what I originally said. That night, my phone buzzed. My friend Sarah sent a screenshot from Instagram. It was a DM from me. My profile had sent her a weird message. Something like, "It's me, I found him again. Don't text me here." Except I never sent that. I hadn't even been on Instagram that day. I thought maybe I had been hacked, but when I checked, I was still logged in everywhere. Nothing looked off except for that message. I deleted it, changed my password, and moved on. The next day, my phone blew up with notifications. 3 more of my friends had gotten DMs from me, all slightly different, but all with the same strange tone. One said, "He's back. Don't answer unknown messages." Another said, "He's in the app again. Don't swipe tonight." They all thought I was messing with them. But I checked my Instagram outbox, and there they were, sent from my account. I deleted them again, changed every password I could think of, email, socials, the dating app. But even when I did, new ones popped up later that evening, not just on Instagram. My friends started getting weird texts, too. Messages from my number. One of them said, "It's okay, I know where he is now." It didn't even sound like me. I turned my phone off completely. When I turned it back on an hour later, my wallpaper was different. A blurry screenshot of a Hinge profile. I could barely make out the name, but the photo looked familiar. It was Illy. I searched for him again on the app, but nothing came up. His name, his pictures, everything. Gone. That night, I uninstalled Hinge. I didn't want anything to do with it anymore. But when I woke up the next morning, there was a notification on my lock screen from the Hinge app, even though it wasn't installed anymore. It said, "Ellie sent you a rose." My phone shouldn't have been able to show that. I reinstalled the app, hoping to screenshot it, but when it loaded, my profile had changed. My bio wasn't mine anymore. My photos were there, but the prompts were rewritten. It said things I'd never typed. Looking for the one that got away. Sometimes I disappear. We talked before, don't you remember? The weirdest part, I couldn't edit any of it. Every time I tried, it froze. I scrolled through my matches, and there was only one. No photo, no name. Just a gray silhouette with a single message waiting. It said, "You shouldn't have stopped talking to me." I deleted the app again. This time I reset my entire phone. For a few days, nothing happened. No messages, no weird notifications. I started thinking maybe it was some messed up glitch, or maybe I was overreacting. But then Sarah called me in the middle of the night. She sounded freaked out. She said she got a voice note from me on Instagram, even though she knew I was asleep. She played it on speaker while we were on the phone. It wasn't me talking. It was a man's voice. Calm, quiet, saying her name. Saying my name. Saying things like, "She's still here. She's safe now." I didn't sleep that night. The next day, I tried deleting all my social accounts completely, not just logging out, but gone for good. But every time I tried, the apps would crash before confirming. I even borrowed a friend's laptop to try it from there. Same thing. When I finally got my Instagram to delete, I felt this weird relief, until I got a text from a random number a few minutes later. It said, "You can't delete what's already copied." That same afternoon, my friend Josh messaged me saying he'd gotten a follow request from me again. But it wasn't my username. It was an account with my photos, my bio, even the same captions I'd posted. The only difference was the name, Theon underscore that underscore got underscore away. He thought I made a new account, but I hadn't. The messages from that fake profile started getting stranger. It sent him a photo, one of me sitting on my bed, from an angle that didn't exist on any of my devices. My lights were off in the picture, but the shape in the corner of the frame looked like a man standing near my door. When Josh showed me the photo, I deleted everything again. Phone, accounts, everything. I even bought a new phone a few days later. For a while, there was quiet. Then, a week ago, I was scrolling through Spotify when I noticed a new playlist under my account. It was called Ellie's Mix. Every song on it was something we talked about that first week we matched. The description said, "She's finally back online." That night, Sarah texted me again, just one message. It said, "Why are you messaging me from 2 accounts?" I never replied. Now I keep getting notifications from apps I don't even have downloaded. It's always the same, my profile picture, my name, my words. But they're sending things I'd never write. Some of the messages are people I don't even know. The last one I saw before my phone froze completely said, "We're all here now." And under that there was a reply from a user named Illy. It said, "I told you she'd come back." I only made the dating profile because my friends wouldn't stop bugging me about it. They said I needed to get out there, that it wasn't healthy to just hang out with my dog all the time. His name's Milo, a lazy golden retriever with a face that makes people stop me in the street. I threw one of our photos up as my main picture because, honestly, he was the only thing about my life that looked interesting. A few days later, I matched with someone named Leela. Her profile looked normal, a few photos with friends, some random travel shots, one of those love coffee but hate mornings bios. She messaged first. The very first thing she said wasn't about me, it was about Milo. She said she recognized him. I thought she was joking, so I played along saying something dumb like, "Yeah, he's famous in the park." But she doubled down. She said she knew him. Said she used to own a dog that looked just like him. Same spot on the nose, same white patch on his paw. I laughed it off at first. When she asked if he had a small scar under his ear, I froze. Because he did. She said it had to be him. I told her I'd adopted Milo 2 years ago from a shelter outside the city. The rescue paperwork said he'd been found wandering alone near the highway. She told me that was where she'd lost her dog. She said his name used to be Cooper. I didn't know what to say to that. I mean, what are the odds? She wasn't mad or anything, just weirdly emotional about it. She asked if she could meet him sometime, just to see. I figured there was no harm in that. Our first date was fine. We met at a cafe near the park. She was nice, a little quiet but funny in that dry, observant way. When I brought Milo, she went still for a second before kneeling beside him. He wagged his tail like crazy, licking her face like he'd known her forever. She started crying right there on the sidewalk. I didn't know what to do, so I just let them have their moment. She said his name, Cooper, and he perked up, tilting his head like he recognized it. I laughed nervously, said maybe he just liked the sound. She didn't respond to that. She just kept petting him, whispering things I couldn't hear. After that, she wanted to see us again, a lot. At first, I thought it was sweet. She'd bring treats, toys, even a new leash. But she started acting like Milo wasn't mine. She'd call him Coop like it was still his name. When I'd tell her to stop confusing him, she'd smile and say he looked happiest when she said it. She'd text me constantly asking what he was doing, if I took him to the park, if he still slept on his side or barked at birds. I brushed it off as sentimental. Losing a pet sucks, I get it. But one night, I woke up to the sound of someone outside my apartment. Not like footsteps, more like a soft whistle, the kind you used to call a dog. Milo jumped off the bed and ran to the window. His tail was wagging. I looked outside but saw nothing, just the empty parking lot and the flickering streetlight. The next day, I found a tennis ball sitting by my front door. Not one of ours, a brand new one, still smelling like rubber. When I told Lila about it, she laughed and said maybe Milo's old habits were coming back. I tried to change the topic, but she just kept going, saying how happy she was that he found his way back. I told her again that I adopted him, that he wasn't coming back from anywhere. Her face dropped for a second before she said, "Right, of course." We didn't talk for a few days after that. Then one morning, I came home from work, and Milo wasn't waiting by the door like he always was. The apartment was quiet, too quiet. I called his name, checked every room. The window in the living room was cracked open, just a bit. My stomach dropped. I ran outside calling for him, my voice echoing through the parking lot. I didn't even care that people were staring. About 20 minutes later, he came trotting down the street, tail wagging, tongue out, happy as ever. But something about him looked off. His collar was missing, and tied around his neck was a red ribbon I'd never seen before. When I took it off, there was a note attached. Just one sentence written in neat handwriting. He still remembers where home is. I called the shelter that night. They said they had no record of anyone named Lila connected to Milo's file. The adoption was finalized under my name only. I asked if anyone had inquired about him recently, and the woman said no. A few days later, I saw Lila again. Not in person, online. She posted a photo on Instagram. It was of Milo, or Cooper, whatever. He was sitting next to her in her living room wearing the same red ribbon. I freaked out, grabbed my phone, and ran to check on him. He was there, asleep on the couch. Same red ribbon sitting in the trash where I'd thrown it. I scrolled back to her photo. It had the same lighting as my apartment, the same throw blanket on the couch, the same stain on the carpet in the corner. I looked at the timestamp. It said, posted 3 minutes ago. That night, I locked every door, every window. I slept with the lights on. Milo stayed by the bed, tail twitching in his sleep. Around 2 a.m., he sat up suddenly, ears perked. He stared at the door and started wagging his tail. Then the whistle started again. Soft, slow, familiar. I grabbed a flashlight and went to the window. Someone was standing by the fence, a shadowy figure in a hoodie. I couldn't see her face, but I knew it was her. She whistled again, holding out her hand. Milo barked once, whining to go outside. When I yelled, she didn't run. She just turned slowly toward me, and for a second, the light caught her face. She was smiling. By the time I got outside, she was gone. Since then, it's been quiet. No more whistles, no more notes. But sometimes Milo wakes up in the middle of the night and stares at the door like he's waiting for something. His tail starts wagging even when no one's there. Last week, I found another red ribbon under the couch. I never saw it fall there. I don't even know how long it's been sitting there. But every time I take it away, I find it back in the same spot the next day, tied neatly into a bow. It started as one of those matches that felt weirdly easy. No dry pauses, no awkward small talk. Just smooth conversation from the start. His name was Ryan. His profile looked normal enough. A couple of gym photos, a group shot with friends, one of him holding a coffee on a city street. He came off confident but not arrogant, charming in a low-effort kind of way. We met a week later at this brunch spot he picked downtown. He showed up early, already sitting at a table outside. He was exactly like his pictures. Clean-cut, friendly smile, just slightly too perfect. He greeted me like we already knew each other. It caught me off guard, but it also put me at ease. He had that easygoing tone that makes you forget you just met them online. The first date went well. Too well, maybe. He asked a lot of questions. Not in a normal, curious way, though. More like he was leading the conversation somewhere specific. I'd tell a story, and he pushed deeper, asking oddly specific follow-ups. Like he wanted to see how I'd react. Still, I brushed it off. Some people are just observant. Afterward, he texted to say he had a great time, and I did too. There wasn't anything off yet. On our second date, he asked if I'd meet him somewhere more casual, a park near the river. I agreed, figuring it would be nice to just walk and talk. When I got there, he was already sitting on a bench, scrolling through his phone. He greeted me with that same relaxed energy, but I noticed something different this time. He kept adjusting his jacket, like he was checking something inside the pocket. We walked for a while, grabbed coffee, and sat near the water. He asked more weirdly detailed questions again. Stuff about my exes, what I'd do if someone lied to me, if I thought men and women can ever truly understand each other. It felt like something out of a podcast debate. He laughed when I called him out on it and said he was just curious about social dynamics. I didn't think much of it. The next few days, he texted constantly. Always friendly, always a little too thoughtful. I told my friends about him, and everyone said he sounded great. Then one night, I was scrolling through YouTube before bed, letting autoplay run. I clicked on a recommended video titled "Modern Dating is Broken. Watch this woman prove it." It had over 200 views. The thumbnail was blurry, but something about it caught my attention. The hair color, the background. It looked like me. When I clicked on it, my stomach dropped. It was me, sitting across from Ryan at that same cafe from our first date. The footage was slightly tilted, like it came from a hidden camera on the table. My voice was clear. My laugh, my gestures, all of it, caught on camera. He was narrating over it, pausing every few minutes to analyze what I said. He broke down my responses like I was part of some experiment. When I smiled, he said it was performative. When I crossed my arms, he called it defensive body language. When I talked about work, he labeled me self-absorbed. The comments section was a mess. Thousands of people debating me like I wasn't a real person. Calling me names, making assumptions, dissecting every movement. Some said I was manipulative. Others said I was the reason men don't date anymore. It felt like watching a version of myself I didn't recognize. I couldn't breathe. I scrolled through his channel. He had dozens of videos, all titled things like "Testing Modern Women," "Social Experiment," and exposing female dating patterns. Each one featured a different woman. Most of their faces were blurred, but mine wasn't. I tried messaging him immediately, but he blocked me. His Hinge profile was gone too. Deleted. I reported the video flagged the channel, did everything I could, but it didn't matter. Within hours, it was reuploaded to other accounts, mirrored, clipped, turned into TikToks. The comment sections filled with strangers who thought they knew everything about me. My DMs blew up, random men sending me the video, some apologizing, most mocking me. Someone even found my Instagram and commented under my photos, calling me the girl from Ryan's video. I stopped leaving my apartment for a while. Every time I checked online, there were more videos. Reaction channels, podcasts, compilations. People pretending to be experts, rewinding parts where I laughed or hesitated, turning them into proof of whatever narrative they wanted. I started hearing his voice everywhere. In videos, in quotes, in random comment threads. He'd say things like, "Watch how she tries to shift the power dynamic." Like my personality was something to be studied, not lived. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I pictured that hidden camera light blinking on the table. A week later, I got an email from a stranger. It said, "You should probably check the second channel too." I didn't recognize the address. When I clicked the link, it took me to another YouTube channel. No profile picture. No description. Just one upload. It was titled Unedited Footage, her second date. The thumbnail showed the park by the river. I watched it, even though I didn't want to. He recorded that too. Every second of it. The hidden camera wasn't on the table this time, it was in his jacket. He even titled it with the date we met. There was no narration this time, just raw footage of me talking, laughing, existing. The part that broke me was at the end. He stood up, walked away, and the camera caught him turning back to look at me. He smiled, then spoke quietly into his mic. He said, "Perfect, she's authentic." That was it. The video ended. I tried reporting it again, but the channel disappeared before I could, like it was never there. A few days later, I found out he'd uploaded the same footage somewhere else, a private forum that people use to analyze dating interactions. My face was everywhere. People wrote essays about my body language, my personality, my supposed intentions. They talked about me like I was data. I went to the police, but they said it was a gray area. Because I had agreed to the dates, it wasn't technically illegal unless I could prove he planted the camera intentionally. But how do you prove intent when someone's whole thing is pretending it's an experiment? I deleted every social app, changed my number, even moved apartments. But every now and then I still get messages, screenshots, links, people sending me clips of new videos with different women, all of them labeled the same way, all of them dissected by him and his followers. The most recent one was uploaded a week ago. The title said, "What happens when she finds out?" The thumbnail showed my face. The description said, "She's watching this right now."